Hello and welcome to another Hawkview Collector instruction video. In this video, we will look at how to export parts of your workspace and import other workspaces into your current active workspace. Before we begin, I'll just remind you that everything that we'll be talking about here is available in the instruction manual, which is accessible through the application in the Help menu. So in order to export parts of your workspace, first you have to have a workspace open. Then you go to the Workspace menu and you click on Export. This window here breaks down the different items in your workspace by grouping. So you have your acquisitions, equations, models with their tunings, and views. What this feature allows you to do is take certain items from your workspace and create a new workspace with just those items in them. And this can be useful if, for example, you have a very large workspace and you want to share maybe just a model with a colleague for them to review, or you have a few important views that you want to show your clients but don't want to load the entire workspace just to show it to them. So you can export these into their own workspaces and view them independently of the rest of the workspace. There are a few things to note, and that is that since the views and the models are dependent on the trends that they use, which in turn are associated to an acquisition, if you were to export just a view without the acquisitions behind it, you would not be able to visualize that view. The view would be exported to its own workspace, and it will exist there, and you will see it in your work tree, but you will not be able to access that view or model. In fact, you'll get warnings from the exporter to say, are you sure you want to do this, because it's not usable on its own. And there are times where that might be necessary. For instance, if you have two workspaces that are being worked on simultaneously and both use the same acquisitions, perhaps one workspace will develop models that the other workspace will want to incorporate. So you'll want to export just your models and then import them into that workspace. And they're still usable because the acquisitions they use are already in that workspace. In fact, we'll look at an example of that in just a minute. So if I want to export, first off, it's very straightforward. I just select the items I want. And you can see the tunings are, you can export the tunings without the models. It's fine, works fine. You can just take everything if you'd like. I'll grab just a view and I'll export to create a new workspace, export workspace. And I'll hit OK. And you see I get the warning, the following items are required to ensure fully functional exported workspace. So it's telling me that this view here requires these two acquisitions. Do I want to proceed? I'll say no. So I want to talk about one more thing in this window, and that's the search bar. This view, or this workspace rather, is not a great example of needing a search bar because it's very small and I can see everything in one window. But if your workspace is very large, you may be interested in grabbing or using the search bar to cycle through. So let's actually grab this. Let's grab this view and this model with this tuning. And what's it going to say? It's going to tell us that I need sample equation and sample acquisition. Right. So let's grab sample equation, sample acquisition. Now let's remove this view because maybe I don't want to grab those acquisitions, so I'll just take the view out. Let's export that. And now what's happened is it's created a workspace that we can open. We called it exported workspace. And now we have this tuning accessible, the model, and their acquisitions. Now, if you have two workspaces and you want to share information between them, you'll need a way to import one into the other. Well, we do offer that feature here as well. So let's import the other workspace that we created into this one. So to do that, you go to Workspace, Import, and then you're going to look for the workspace was demo workspace. And there we go, open. Now we're getting a warning for conflict because this workspace contains a model that exists in the other workspace. And it doesn't know what to do with that. It was asking us which one do we want. Now note that it didn't ask us about the equation and acquisition because the equation and acquisition do exist in both workspaces, but because that's just the raw data behind the scenes, it's not going to ask us. It's just going to say, hey, this one exists in both. I'm just not going to import it. It's already there. So it knows what to do. But because the models and your views as well, it will also ask you for your views. Because your models and views are not just raw data, they're manipulated and edited and changed in the workspace. It's going to ask you which one you want. So in this case, I haven't made any changes, so there's no real difference. But what I'll do is I'll close this. All right, perfect. I'll go here. I'll add a pair. I'll just kind of throw this on here somewhere without any real precision as to what's happening. Yeah, sure. That looks real good. All right. So let's import this workspace again. Now it's telling us, hey, in this one there's 5 pairs and the other one there's 4 pairs. So it gives you kind of an idea of the differences between them. There's a limit to what it can measure without opening the workspace fully and reading through it all. But for now we'll say, let's just use the other one. I don't need that 5th pair. It's garbage. So it's going to remove this one and add the other one, and it's going to keep the tunings associated. What you see here is now I have the 2 acquisitions that weren't here before. They were in the other workspace. They're now here. And I have my 2 views. And I also have all the tunings that were in the other one. And you'll notice that this tuning here, my tuning called sub tuning, is now here twice. And the second one has just 4 random characters added to the end of it. If you have tunings that share the name with another tuning in the workspace that you're importing, the imported tuning will be assigned a 4-character hexadecimal suffix randomly to identify it from the other one. And if this bothers you, if you don't want to have the suffix here, well, now you can right-click, rename your tuning, and you can remove it. You just have to note that you can only have 1 tuning with each name in your workspace. I can overwrite this one. I know they're the same, so I could, but I'll say no, and I'll just call it 2. Views work similarly, so if you have 2 views that you're importing and they are 2 identical views and that they have the same source, they will not, it'll show up as a conflict. But if you have 2 views that are very different but just share the same name, it'll import both of them, but one of them will have a 4-digit hexadecimal suffix created at random. So that's how you import and export parts of your workspace. This is a very useful tool for sharing parts of your workspace with colleagues or for archiving. If you, for instance, you keep a workspace for your client, but you want to archive a project, you can export what's relevant to that project and save it as its own workspace in an archive for a future reference. I'm going to go over one more thing, and that is if you have a very large workspace, because this is where the search feature is much more handy. So in this workspace, I have many models, and tunings, and acquisitions. I'll go to my workspace, and I'll export it. You can see that I can look through, can sort these, and I can say, okay, well, maybe I want to find anything that has to do with 0381. Let's go through these. So I have a few of these here. finding for me. And this is just a quick example of using a large workspace, or rather exporting a large workspace. All right, well, I hope this video was helpful, and thank you for watching.